Hi, folks. This is Mark by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D. for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. I will be making this podcast without mentioning any names at all, well, except my own. The podcast I made earlier today was the first one I had made in several days because my computer was in the shop in Best Buy with various problems, mostly related to updates, a problem which is still not completely solved, and my sound card. I came back to listen to the things that I had missed on various sites that are run by other Maoist-Third Worldists. Let me start out by saying that I love Maoism Third Worldism. It has been one of the greatest privileges of my life that I have had a second chance to come back into it after abandoning it for a really stupid tendency. No point in mentioning that again. And then returning to it this past June under a particular person's influence. I came back at a bad time. Not bad for me. I mean, I'm fine, but a bad time for the community of Maoist Third Worldists, the one that I am associated with and the one that I love. Let me say right off the bat that every Maoist Third Worldist I have known is wonderful, and I love them dearly. I have no feeling of animosity or hatred. Why would I? Toward anybody else who is a Maoist Third Worldist. Being a Maoist Third Worldist to me means that one cares about colonized people, that one cares about eliminating the empire, the American empire, that one cares about eliminating first world cultural hegemony. What more loving movement could there be than that? If there is, I would like to find it, because I feel that on returning to Maoism Third Worldism, I literally don't understand why I left it in the first place. However, upon returning back with my computer mostly fixed, I see that there has been some conflict among my friends, people that I do regard as my friends. And as I said, I will not mention any names at all. I will not even give any clues. I hope, at least I hope not, where anyone can figure out who I am talking about. The point of this video is not to blame anybody or to point fingers at somebody else. I am a very imperfect man. Part of that imperfection relates to my autism, but just in general, I mean, I'm just an imperfect man. I look back on my 68 years, and yes, I am now 68 as of a few days ago. And I realize I have done more than what was expected for me as an autistic. But I also realize that I could have done so much more. And we only have so much time. And my clock, the clock of my life, is rapidly running out. Seeing the dissension which has erupted in my community, which I initially did not fully understand, but now I think I understand it better than I did at first. And I have nothing but complete and total sorrow. We are all human beings. We are all human beings. None of us is perfect. All of us have made mistakes, especially me, at various times in our lives. And so my plea is this, that we can look past the mistakes of others and come back into a community and don't blame others. Nobody is ever going to agree with anyone else on everything. If that's one thing I've learned, especially as a sociologist, that is it. No one will agree with anyone on everything, or even close to everything. I find it to be almost miraculous when I agree so much with certain people, as I do with the Maoist-Third Worldists that I have gotten to know. Now, all of us are very different. So what? We all have different ways of approaching the world, different views of this and that. Who cares? Who cares? Ultimately, what matters, to me anyway, is emancipation. Emancipation, ultimately, of the third world from the stench of the capitalist world system. And that stench is getting harsher and harsher all the time. I smell it more than I ever have smelled it before. I don't know if you can too, but I can tell you this. I know a lot of people who are having the same experiences as I am having, or quite similar ones, where suddenly they feel that their lives are in a profound crisis and they really don't know how to get out of it. Let me share this to you from the bottom of my heart. I pledge to be with you. I pledge to be with you. I pledge to support Maoism Third Worldism and other Maoist Third Worldists. It is, in my view, the best hope that a dying capitalist world system has right now. I think it may be the only hope. Is it a guarantee? No. Nothing is a guarantee. There are no guarantees in socialism or communism. Everything is up to us. What is guaranteed, and I honestly think that this is at the heart of the problems which my Maoist-Third Worldist community is experiencing right now, is the disgusting decay of the capitalist world system. And that decay is affecting all of us. No one is immune from it. And the most vulnerable, the most sensitive, those who have had the most difficult lives, who have gone through tremendous struggles, are having the most difficult time of all of us. And I see that. And as a sociologist, I think back to the formal sociology of Georg Simmel. Formal sociology does not mean formal as the opposite of informal. I think it would be more accurately called the sociology of forms, the forms of social organization. Two of those forms, and ones that are known to most people, although they usually don't know that it comes from Simmel, are dyads and triads. A dyad is a group of two, and a triad is a group of three. But that just sets up the stage. That is not really the explanation that we need. Our Maoist Third Worldist community is obviously not a dyad. It's not two people. A group of two people, according to Simmel, is a group which generally has a great deal of intimacy, but a minimal amount of permanence. Going back to the expression, two's company and three's a crowd. If you have a group of two people, they will often become very close. That can be either good or bad. You may have two people love each other or hate each other, but either way, the closeness is going to be very strong. Dyads also are generally impermanent, because if there is a fight between the two people in the dyad, there is nobody to resolve it, and the dyad will frequently fall apart. A triad, which can be expanded to even larger groups of social organization, is a group of three. Groups of three are typically not as intimate as groups of two. The larger a group gets, the more difficult it is to maintain intimacy. I think we can all find examples in our lives of when that has been true. I know I can. But dyads tend to be more permanent, because triads tend to be more permanent, because if you have a triad, say there is a vote, and the vote is one yes, one no, yay and nay. That third person can break the tie. That third person can also act as a mediator to fix the problems that existed between two members of that triad. So the Maoist-Third Worldist community on YouTube, which I love, deeply love, is more than a triad, but it begins with a triad. The intimacy level is not going to be as great because we are many. It's hard to maintain intimacy when you have a large group of people or a large social organization. And the larger you get, the more difficult it becomes even to know everyone. But in a triad or a larger social organization, at least you have strength in numbers. And then you can have something approaching a proletarian democracy, a democracy of workers, where workers can vote and come to decisions and arrive at possibly even some level of unanimity, although that's probably rare, but it's possible. It does happen. Why? Because of the pressure of numbers. Think about it. When one person raises their hand in a group, what's the first thing that happens? Other people will look at who is raising their hand, whether yay or nay. And then it is very common for other people to simply imitate that person who voted yay or nay. And so that's the way you build consensus. Now, I'm not saying that's good necessarily, because in a way it's sort of saying that, well, people are giving up their own personal agency to the group. And I would agree with that. But at least it is a way of maintaining solidarity in a group, something which is not as possible in a dyad, but is possible in a triad and larger groups. Well, we Maoist-Third Worldists on YouTube, the people that I am involved with, are like a triad plus. And there are always going to be problems of intimacy. We should expect it. Not only expect it, but we should anticipate it. Even beyond that, we should look forward to it. Why do I say that? Because there is a lot to learn from difference. If we all simply agree with each other all the time on every imaginable issue, then what are we going to learn? I mean, I know what you believe, you know what I believe, I know what other people believe, but if there is variation, that's good. Each person can contribute their own insights, their own knowledge to the strength of the organization. So, for that reason, Zimmel said that there are two types of what he called sociation. Sociation basically means social interaction, kind of a neutral word between association and dissociation. So sociation simply means interacting with others. Association refers in Zimmel's formal sociology to sociation in which people are attracted to one another. Now, that's obviously the best kind of association to have. Then there is dissociation, which is where people in the organization or group are repelled from one another. But that isn't necessarily bad either, because something can be learned from being repelled as well. You can gain a sense of how to work better with others, including how to work better with people that you disagree with. And so I think that Zimmel's concept of sociation, his concepts of dyads and triads, all a part of his overall formal sociology, can present us with a very useful way of looking at the problems that we are currently facing, and which I can only say breaks my heart in my Maoist-Third Worldist community. That's how I think of it, my Maoist-Third Worldist community. And I think all of us should have that sense of ownership over it, because it is all of our Maoist-Third Worldist community. It belongs to each and every one of us. By owning it, we take responsibility for it. We love it. We treasure it. We cultivate it. We try to make it stronger. When we see problems, we acknowledge them. We don't run away from them. That's the worst thing to do, is to run away from problems. We recognize them and we enter into dialogue on how we can do things better. And the key word there is do. Marxism is ultimately about theory and praxis. Theory is explanation, a term that I use a lot as a social theorist, which is one of my specializations in sociology, along with the sociology of religion. And praxis is related to the word practice, but it has a slightly different connotation. It means basically theoretically based practice. Most people act out of habit, out of custom, unthinkingly, without carefully considering the impact of their actions on others, or even without considering the impact of one's actions on oneself. That is something which we can avoid. There are ways of avoiding it. The way of avoiding it is by becoming servants. To be a Maoist-Third Worldist, to me, is to have a heart of servitude for the third world, to love the third world, to recognize that, sure, interpersonal problems, problems of association will inevitably crop up from time to time. But so what? So what? We need to look at where we want to go. Ultimately, we want to go, I think, in the direction of socialism and communism, whichever term you prefer, or both. Names are unimportant. What's important is what something means in one's own heart. A rejection of the capitalist world system and a yearning for a communist or socialist world system. And in my view, the best way that we can cultivate a serving heart, a truly serving heart, is by practicing what the Brazilian educator Paulo Freire called conscientization. In forming that word, he based it on the French, conscience. Conscience in French has a dual definition, because in French there is no separate word for consciousness. There is no French cognate for consciousness. So conscience can be translated either as conscience or as consciousness. And Freire, I believe, like myself, and like many others, see it in both ways. The consciousness part is the awareness of the types of actions that we need to take to encourage revolutions beginning in the third world. The conscience is the heart, the moral compass. It's where we all need to live. We need to live every moment of our lives in our conscience, in our moral compass. As a moral realist, as one who believes that morality is a part of nature, literally, meaning it is not socially constructed. We are literally moral beings. So in practicing behavior, in practicing sociation, we draw upon those virtues, those qualities, those parts of our conscience that reside within us, and not only within us, within all things. So I hope that my little presentation was helpful for some people, because I was so saddened at what I saw when I came back. I mean, I have a lot of computers laying around. I could have opened another one and watched things on YouTube, but to be honest, I was so busy trying to get my existing computer fixed that I didn't want to waste my time on anything else. Well, now I have my main desktop fixed. I can listen to all of my comrades. And again, let me assure you, I see no divisions. I see no separations between us. I love all of you. And I want us all to work together as a cohesive unit. All of us. Who cares about slight differences in viewpoint? Who cares about differences in personality? Inevitably, there are differences in personality. We are all different. Does it matter? Well, yes and no. It matters if it creates divisions. It doesn't matter if we use it as a challenge to rise above those divisions and become a stronger community. So here's my proposal: that we take this crisis, maybe too harsh a word, I'm not sure, but I'll use it anyway. That we take this crisis as an opportunity to rise above ourselves, to think about serving others, especially about serving the third world through conscientization, critical conscience, and consciousness raising. That's what we need to do. That's our job. I mean, when I became a Marxist at only 12 years old, also a communist at 12 years old, although I admittedly knew very little about either one, I still knew that I was making a commitment to the third world, to Mexico, because the major objective of our group was to help California migrant workers for Mexico under the Migrant Workers Union run by Cesar Chavez. Now, I have returned to my roots, and I could not be happier. I can't imagine anything better to believe in terms of a political philosophy than Maoism, Third Worldism. Nothing. And we have it. But the fact that we have it is no guarantee that we won't lose it tomorrow. We need to constantly work on building up this wonderful treasure of Maoism, Third Worldism, to cultivate it in our hearts. Because if we don't do that, it can escape us. And then where will we be? I could never again become a first worldist. That's unimaginable to me. Not because I hate the first world. There are aspects I hate, aspects I like. I mean, I'm from the first world, so there are many parts of the first world that I like. But the first world has become counter-revolutionary. It's turned away from our deeper needs of service and love and unity and socialism and communism, meaning the first world has become unloving. People I have known for my entire life, literally my entire life, going back to when I was 5, many of them are experiencing tremendous trauma right now, and they have no idea of what to do about it. That they don't know where it is coming from. They don't have any concept of the contradictions of capitalism. And yet those contradictions of capitalism are eating away at their souls. So if I need to return to this, honestly, I hope I don't. I hope I don't. But if I need to return to this, I will. Because again, let me say, I love you all deeply. I have tremendous empathy for each and every one of you. And if you are not a Maoist-Third worldist, I would encourage you to look into it. Watch some of the videos on the channels of various Maoist-Third worldists on YouTube, for instance, including my own. Although I don't know if my own are necessarily the best ones out there, but I don't want to mention anybody else's name, as I said, so I guess you can start with my own and then go past that. So that's really all I have to say. Do I want to stop speaking now? No. But I also don't want to bore you. And I realize I have a tendency to drone on and on. That's a part of my autism. I've had it my entire life. I just keep on talking, whether or not anybody is listening to me. Look, we need to love each other, to look past any perceived deficiencies, whether accurate or inaccurate, and genuinely care for one another. And I think if we do that, and we can, as a sociologist, I have worked as a consultant with groups that were literally falling apart, and we were able to patch them together with, admittedly, my guidance. We were able to patch those groups together, and nobody thought that it could be done. It can be done. It can. Doesn't matter how bad things seem. Doesn't matter who you think is to blame. Forget blame. Forget blame. Eventually, if anybody really is to blame, and I'm not saying that there is, when that person sees the unity, the strength arising from within us, that person will lose interest. I don't know if there is such a person, or even if I did know, I wouldn't tell you. So please, please, let's all step back, meditate. I meditate all the time. Think deeply about one's actions. Think about the good qualities in other people. If somebody has 50 bad qualities, 50 imperfections, and only one virtue that you know about, focus on that one virtue and forget the imperfections, because they don't matter. What matters is socialism or communism beginning in the third world. The fact that we are having these problems in the first world should surprise none of us. The first world is in really bad shape. But we need, if anybody can do it, it should be us, because we know what the problem is. Late stage capitalism in the first world, right? I dream about that occasionally. I'll wake up and that thought is on the tip of my tongue. So we know what the problem is. All or most of us are living in the decadent first world. So be it. We are here. But let's make something good out of it, please. Please, let's make something good out of it. For the time being, this is Mark, by Mark A. Foster, Ph.D., for the Institute for Dialectical Meta-Realism. Have a pleasant day, a really, really, really pleasant day. and an even better day tomorrow.